Well, the more they try to cover the stuff up, the less effective it is.
Yep. And by the way, I am going live on TikTok, on YouTube, so let's be careful about certain topics or use euphemisms.
Euphemisms. You mean when I say J&J vaccine, I should say something else?
Don't criticize the vaccine. Exactly.
Even the ones that the government took off the market?
Yeah, even. Let's be very careful on that.
All right.
It's one of those issues that is, it's not allowed. Okay. All right, here we are. Michael D. Shaw is here. Charles Moscowitz. Thanks for joining me, everyone. I usually do the program Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 p.m., and I do special editions like this one, which I'm doing every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Michael, how are you?
Hey, just fine. And by the way, for those of you watching this that don't think it's 2 p.m., just set your clocks to 2 now. Thank you.
Okay. So we can discuss the virus and the remedy, which is the vaccine, with very great care because you can't criticize it. It's not. Whoops. Whoops. And let me just TikTok is doing some funny business here. It's kind of not allowed. But let me just say for the record that I am having my second dose on Friday.
Well, good.
Of the Pfizer, and it's kind of a personal choice. It's something that I've weighed and measured many factors, and I'm going forward with it, even though I'm nervous, obviously, about it, as anyone should be and is. But people in my family have done it. Everyone seems fine. I think that I'm old enough and I have a strong enough immune system that, probably my risk is less. I also take a lot of vitamins, and I'm in better shape than I've been in years. And, I just, hope for the best. I mean, you just have to bite the bullet.
Well, you actually look better when I first met you in the 1980s. So I don't know what the hell you're doing, but it's...
Well, I am more health conscious. I exercise, I better diet, try to do things. This might seem like a simple thing, but I actually spend a good deal of time breathing very carefully every day.
Breathing, okay.
Yeah. It sounds simple. I saw this short story of this guy who back in the 19th century, early 19th century, he had been given a diagnosis of only having a short time to live. He was in very poor health. And so he decided that he would spend the rest of his life going out into the wilderness and hooking up with Native Americans and kind of going Indian, which, by the way, is something I think a lot of people did back then.
Yeah.
And so he did, and he ended up befriending them, and they taught him methods to get healthier. And the basic message that they gave him was to spend a good deal of time every day breathing. Up one nostril, down the other, then reverse, up and down the other, and to breathe deeply into all of your extremities. Feel it into your toes and into the tips of your fingers, and make sure that you are fully oxygenated. And so he started to practice this. He ended up living another 40 years. He became very healthy. And, it's kind of also something that's fairly well known among the Eastern cultures. And, it seems simple, but I think there's a lot to that, to just take the time to fully oxygenate every day. It's free. It's like it's a totally zero risk. There are things that are so available to us. I remember years ago, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I had acid reflux, and I was really, trying to figure out what to do, especially since I was doing talk radio. And so I went to the hospital here and I got a prescription, and I took the prescription probably for maybe the better part of 4 or 5 months. And it kind of worked, it sort of helped, but I didn't totally feel great. And I knew there was something not right. And so finally I got around to reading the fine print and doing a little research. And I discovered that there's some really nasty side effects to this.
Protein pump inhibitors,
Yeah, that it does something to your bones. I mean, it's like really serious things. And so I came across this guy, Joe Barton, who offers health products. And he's very good. And he he basically says that there are things you can buy at your grocery store, regular food that actually cures different ailments. And he issues a monthly report, really good guy. He actually sponsored me for a while. And he said that he got into it because his father had suffered from serious acid reflux. And he discovered that the simple remedy was to have an apple. And that if you really had, and if you really had serious problems, apple cider vinegar, particularly Bragg's apple cider vinegar, and or unprocessed raw honey in tea. And so I started doing that, and it worked. It's not 100%, but it cost me nothing to buy a bag of apples. I would probably get that anyway. And if I'm feeling somewhat acidic, I'll cut up an apple and have an apple. And so, I guess I'm bringing this up to point out that, when it comes to managing your health, I'm not against conventional medicine. I'm not against vaccines. I'm not against, the usual, certainly not against surgery if you need it.
Right.
But there are alternatives. There are normal, common sense things you can do. And I'm not talking about some crackpot guru stuff either. I'm not saying go out and start to put on a turban and start, chanting Maharaja. I'm talking just really normal, basic, not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I'm talking about, normal conventional things that you can get at the grocery store. An orange, for example, very well may have a beneficial agent to reduce your likelihood of getting cancer.
Yeah.
And other citrus fruits. Not taking a vitamin C pill, but actually having fruit. Grapefruit in particular is supposed to be very good. Now, I'm not here to attest to this. I'm not a doctor, but I'm simply mentioning it because, somebody who is the wise steward over their own life, you want to consider all possibilities, and you want to develop some certain healthy habits. In the time of virus, I go out every day and I have a pretty long walk so that not only did I get cardiovascular, but I also get direct sunlight in my face. And in my, and I usually unbutton my shirt a little. I try to expose myself to the sun.
Yeah.
Because if you do that every day for about a half an hour, you're going to absorb the sunlight that kills viruses. And I think that I mentioned vitamin D, especially if you're up in my part of the country in Boston, because everyone up here has a little bit of a deficiency of vitamin D. And I've heard it speculated that one of the reasons why African Americans are more vulnerable to the virus is because due to the increased melanin in their skin, they need extra time to get sun. Because, when the darker your skin tone, the more time you need, it protects you from sun. There's something about that. So stay out of maybe another 10 minutes, and get a little extra sun. But either way, the natural rays of the sun are the best thing to do to kill viruses. So what's on your mind today?
Well, I have to be very careful about what we talk about, but
let's be very careful. There's certain areas where we have to.
One of the vaccines has been suspended by the FDA and the CDC.
That's right, and I think that's been in the paper.
I think we can talk about that.
Well, even then, the Boston Globe talks about it. That doesn't mean we can talk about it.
That's right.
But so let's be careful. Yes, I think that there have been reportedly 6 cases
of
blood clots, and there's been 1 death. That is not me saying that. That's the Boston Globe. Okay, you can't get more liberal establishment than the Globe. The Globe is an embarrassment when it comes to.
Well, even more liberal outlets than that have memorialized this, and I think that there's a couple of reasons for that. Let's
be careful here.
Yes.
We're treading on very thin ice. Even though, Mike, you're a chemist, you've been a writer of health, you're a health reporter going back a decade, you've written over 1,000 articles, and you've got credentials. We still have to tread very carefully
Well, we are treading very carefully because the question that comes up is why now and why this one? And
I mean, I don't know if we have an answer to that, but
well, I have a speculative answer.
Should we share it? I mean, I don't know.
I will be within the YouTube guidelines. I'm pretty confident.
You know something? I think that maybe we should direct people to an article that they can read about this. I don't know if I feel comfortable.
Oh, all right.
I just don't want to,
all right.
be purged by whoever these Gestapo agents who are purging people right now. So I don't want to I don't want to hand it to them. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of Gestapo,
yeah.
There's a very promoted story on multiple media about apparently some guy in the UK who was in a hotel and got into some issue with the front desk of the hotel for not wanting to wear a mask. So he went back to his room and then was pursued by the local gendarme. And there's a video of them breaking down his door. So
at a hotel.
Yes.
What did they do?
Well, I mean, he was
he arrested for this?
I believe so. This was so that's your now present.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's going on. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this. We talked about this, I think, last week. This viral video of this priest who kicked out the police in Canada. That's making rounds. Right. I mean, get out Gestapo, get out, you Nazi psychopaths. You're not going to come into my service. And, there are some videos out there, more on TikTok than on YouTube, showing people, suddenly announcing that there's this couple went into a grocery store and they started, I think it was in Florida.
Yeah.
And they demanded that people put on the mask. And they're like, look, if you don't feel comfortable here, you can leave. We're not doing it. And they're like, oh, yes, you are. And all of a sudden, the whole store started to change. Out. So,
there was a similar one. There was a restaurant. I don't know where it is. And the video actually may have been on YouTube of a health inspector coming in. And by popular acclaim of the patrons of this restaurant or bakery, whatever it was unclear, they chanted them out. So
that's what people are doing. And I think I've seen that one too. They were in a bar, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, you don't like it? Out! This is our deal here." And everybody suddenly starts to chime in. Look, I'm not here to either endorse or not endorse the wearing of the mask. I wear it when I go into a store, because in Massachusetts you have to, and I probably would anyways, because I actually do think that I don't want to get droplets on me. I don't know who's there. I actually kind of am. Yeah, I've never liked crowds anyways. I think there are actually some good things that are coming out of this. Like, I don't think we need to be handshaking so much and backslapping strangers, especially, but anybody, those are customs that probably will change. You can acknowledge somebody with a little bit of a bow. There's probably a reason why those are customs in Asian countries, because there probably is connected with the spread of viruses and germs. So I don't actually have a problem with that, but I'm not comfortable with mandates, of course.
Yeah.
And, I think it's somewhat ludicrous when I see people wearing it when they're outside and alone or in a car. I mean, don't forget, I live in Boston, so we have some real, loony.
It's very strict. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they put, and the double masks, that's, it's overly fearful. And it actually.
Now, would they wear these masks in the combat zone if it still existed? I wonder.
I don't know. That's been driven out of town a long time ago, but you do see. I mean, you see people who are just so fearful and timid, and even if you take a look at the CDC guidelines, they don't say to do that. I mean, they say they've now changed it to say 3 feet, not when you're like walking down the street and there's someone on the other side of the street who doesn't have a mask, and all of a sudden you're having an apoplexy. It's like people are really, it's like it's beyond reason. So sure, I carry the mask when I'm outside. I have it near me, so if I see somebody coming and they're uncomfortable, I'll hold it up, or something.
Yeah, I mean, these people that are wearing these gator masks, they look like they're ready to rob a stagecoach.
By the way, this has done something I would imagine for bank robbery, hasn't it? You put on the mask. I mean, they don't know who you are. I don't recognize anyone. You can't. You have to.
You have to know someone very well, and they can't cover up too much of their eyes, or you really won't be able to tell.
Now I watch Lester Holt, so you don't have to.
Oh, how do you do this?
Because I then know what they're thinking, and I know what they're doing. It gives me an insight into what the illuminated establishment is saying on a given day. And they had someone on, an expert, and she couldn't even keep a straight face, saying that the mask is reducing allergies and exposure to pollen, and that they're getting these reports saying that this year allergic cases have gone way down.
I don't believe that for a moment.
Neither do I. But what that tells me is that they're setting it up so that the mask ain't going to go away anytime soon. I mean, I know maybe I'm getting a little conspiratorial here. I put on a tin hat, but when I watch stuff on Lester Holt, I take that as smoke signals from the establishment, what it is that they're pushing now, whether it be atrocity propaganda about the virus itself, or whether it be this. I think they're introducing this as something that's going to become normal. And in a way, and again, I want to be careful here, it could possibly be equated with the practices of a certain Eastern religion, or maybe I should say Middle Eastern religion,
yes,
particularly the women who will do practices like this with the covering of the face. Now, I'm not mentioning the name of...
Well, it certainly would have the quote-unquote unintended consequence of limiting human interaction, which I really believe is part of this, for whatever nefarious reason. And the other thing, too, is that the teachers' unions are kind of playing their hand pretty openly, that apparently they'll never want to go back to work. I mean, why should they?
Right.
They get paid anyway. And
well, they're probably, they're doing, besides the ideological aspect of that, they're doing what unions do in that whatever they do, they want concessions, they want benefits, they want money, they want power. They'll come back. It's like the police union in Boston would not allow for some very basic things that make sense unless they got money, unless they got a raise, unless they got another, whatever they're looking for. So, I mean, that's what unions do. That's collective bargaining. I'm not, it's extreme when a union becomes so powerful, and the teachers unions are that. I mean, they almost have a monopoly nationally. The National Education Association, the one in New York, there's two big ones.
Yeah.
That they can make these absolutely absurd demands.
Well, now Randy Weingarten is blaming the Jews.
Yes, I saw that. What's that about? What do you mean she's blaming the Jews?
Well, apparently that...
we get blamed for everything, but what is this deal?
Well, I mean, it's even more stupid when it's a Jew blaming the Jews.
Yeah, well, that's the worst kind. Anyway, what is the deal?
Well, I mean, I guess the idea is that all these horrible Jews want their kids to go back to school, and they're all elitists.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, like non-Jews don't want their kids to go back to school? First of all, it's like, what the hell?
Well, the Jews have always been the people of the book.
I mean, that's like
another.
completely illogical. I mean, everybody wants a kid to go back to school.
Well, no, but I mean, why not pick on the Jews?
Oh my God, that's insane.
Everybody else does. So
yeah, what the hell? I mean, the logic of that, though, it's not like they're saying that the Jews are in being bankers. It's not some nutty conspiracy theory, but it's worse. It's one that doesn't even have a semblance of anything you could hang your hat on. I mean, that's just crazy.
Well, she's throwing raw meat out to whoever's this.
Yeah, whoever's right. Maybe, I don't know, some members of Congress. I don't know.
Whatever ethnic group might be anti-Semitic. I won't mention what that ethnic group might be, but
or whatever ideology might be anti-Semitic, but we won't mention them either.
We won't mention anything.
We can't really mention much now, can we?
Yeah.
We have to speak in indirection. We have to, in a way, we've been forced to speak the language of the left.
We're speaking in tongues here.
Yeah, indirection, double words, double meanings, layers of sophistry. It's what French scholar Elaine Benescon referred to it as the language of totalitarianism. If you listen to the way, a classic example of this would be Obama, right? He would give this brilliant speech where he would say nothing that you could actually identify. It was all this kind of flowery, euphemistic, and you hear it and you're thinking, oh, he's so smart.
This is great. Yeah.
And then I'm stupid because can't do this. But the fact is he says very, very little. And he says a lot of things that do mean something to certain people. And they know what he's talking about. They know what he's getting at.
The code words.
Yeah. And so now because of the censorship, we've been reduced to using similar language. And, the conservative approach is the opposite. The perfect example of the opposite is Donald Trump. You can't get more direct, more simple, more clear, more honest than him. Not that he doesn't tell a white lie here and there, but the point is that, he doesn't, mince words. He's blunt. He's brutal. He doesn't speak with a phony British accent. It goes back in this elitist kind of tongue they use. So we're now reduced to some of that, unfortunately, and maybe we'll have to develop our own system of code words and signals so that we can all communicate publicly without being completely purged.
Yeah, well, this code word thing reminds me of the story of the many, many years ago. This guy was sentenced to a term in Leavenworth, and his cellmate yells out, 31, and everybody starts laughing. And then he says, how about 53? And everybody laughs even harder. So the new rookie says, well, what is this all about? Well, we tell jokes in prison. We got to the point that we just, have numbers that refer to those jokes, and everybody remembers it. Why don't you try it? So the new guy says, 29. Nobody laughs. Nobody laughs. Then he tries, all right. What about 64? And again, nobody laughs. And the rookie turns to his cellmate, says, I don't know, what did I do wrong? He said, I can't help you. Some people tell jokes better than others.
Yeah.
So we can now have codes for the arguments that dare not speak in words.
So, yeah, that's what it comes down to. And, I basically, the other story that's come out, and again, this is 60 Minutes. This isn't some right-wing, fringe. This isn't Parler, this isn't Gab. They had a scientist, this guy Halpern, I don't know if you saw this, who works for the Pentagon, who is saying that we're experimenting with implants and chips.
Yeah.
It can determine perpetually whether or not someone is exposed to viruses. Now, this is what conservatives have been saying for a long time. People like me, the tin hat, that they're going to implement a chip. Well, again, for you YouTube fascists out there, this is not me. This is 60 Minutes. You can check it for yourself. Last Sunday, it was a segment by which they actually interviewed this guy who was in the Pentagon at a lab with this experiment, and he showed I think it was Scott Pelley. He showed him the actual thing, the mechanism that they are planning to implant in people, and apparently have already been doing so with animals. So, this is a real story. This is a real.
Well, the other thing was when Alex Jones suggested over a year ago that something like a vaccine passport might exist. He was condemned by everybody. And lo and behold,
well, there's a community, I think, in California that's right now has a pilot program with that. I mean, so yeah, there's, and just as a little side thought, and I'll toss this out there without too much elaboration, but if they're pushing the idea of people having a vaccine passport, why can't people have a voter ID?
Well, actually, that question has been raised, but never answered.
Right.
I think the official answer is racism.
I see. So then Black people won't have to have a passport for COVID then? I mean, no, why would it be racist to ask a Black person to have an ID for voting and not for COVID?
Because I say so.
I mean, I just wonder what the logic. I mean, the whole thing obviously is a farce. I mean, Now speaking of which, and again, let's be careful here.
No one's more careful than me.
No one's more. Oh yes. Well, I do a TikTok video every day.
And you're careful, and they still come up.
And I'm careful. And in fact, right now I'm live streaming on TikTok, and I've actually built up, a pretty good audience there. I've got almost 10,000 followers.
Wow. Okay.
And it's interesting, when I do a live stream, I could sit down during my walk, turn on the live stream, and all of a sudden there's about 50 people there, and I communicate. I could talk, answer questions, through text. And I did one yesterday that was taken down because of hate speech. Not that I hated.
Well, isn't it ironic though that you're popular because you're not willing to be censored, but yet they'll take it off?
Right. And I have a feeling I'd be a lot more popular if I wasn't being shadow banned there too.
Oh, there's no question about it.
I mean, I'd probably have like 1 million followers.
The reason you have these followers is people are expecting, at least in the short term, to see something that's a little more interesting content, even though they know it's probably going to be taken off.
Could be. But this particular one, I mean, and I've done some controversial TikToks. I say pretty much whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I'm usually not taken off, although there's been a few that have. But this
now you're getting better known, so
maybe
they're watching you.
Suddenly it's like it's on their radar. But this one was very strange because I was talking about the two instances that we all know about that are leading to Black Lives Matter and other leftist groups looting Black neighborhoods and burning Black, businesses and
allegedly.
And well, they are. I mean, and they're threatening to do so if they don't get their way on the George Floyd trial.
Well, now they're going to have the trial of this other one.
Yeah, but all I said was this. I said, look, and I'll try to say this in a way I don't want to get taken down on TikTok.
And I'll stop you if I think you're going.
Thank you. Yeah, let me know. We should have like a button or something, right? I've noticed that, by the way, speaking of which, just to get a little diverted here, I've noticed that on YouTube now, when anybody uses the F word to describe the last election,
yes,
there's a little buzz. They don't say it. It's like it's almost I'm not sophisticated enough, I'll be honest, to edit my videos and to splice. I don't do that. I just go. But people do, and you see like a little blank with that word because that's forbidden. But anyway, back to what's going on. I said, look, in these two cases, the people involved were resisting arrest, or they weren't even willing to get out of the car, and that we hear a lot of talk from people about, and I've seen a lot of people interviewed on this. It's kind of a meme that if you're Black in the United States or you're a person of color, you instruct your children, particularly your male children, at a certain age, you give them what they call the talk, right? This is the way things are. You have to be.
I thought that was a TV show with a bunch of yentas on it.
Yeah. Oh, that was I know the one you mean. You have to be careful because the cops might be racist and you could get in trouble and people can pull you over and, driving while Black. And I understand that. And I said that in the video. I guess.
As opposed to if you're a white kid and and give some back talk to a cop, then nothing will happen to you at all.
Well, the point is, if you're a white kid and you live in one of these left-wing, predominantly wealthy, suburban, lily white neighborhoods, you probably don't have to worry about this. But if you are black, yeah, you might have an issue. You have to carry yourself in a certain way. I think that's true. But what I suggested was that if they're going to have that talk, they might consider mentioning to their young son and even daughter that if you are pulled over, don't resist an arrest, because if you do, you're going to risk your life more so than if you don't. Yes, it's scary. Yes, and by the way, if the cop is racist and pulling you over because they don't like you because you're black, that's all the more reason not to resist arrest, because you're going to be even at bigger risk if you do. And that's all I said. Nothing more and nothing less. Now, I think that somebody didn't like that, and I ended up getting that video taken down.
I mean, somebody didn't like it. You're hitting the hot button. But the other thing that's never discussed, is this isn't anything new. There was the Rampart scandal in LA when I still lived there. This is back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, what had happened was there are a bunch of people in the police department out of that station that got promoted just flat out. It was affirmative action in that not only as a race thing, there were people who were felons that were promoted to high rank within that particular station. And surprise, surprise, there was all kinds of problems. And what they were doing is eliminating standards. And in the case of Minneapolis, the Chauvin character had a terrible record, should have been kicked out before.
And by the way, as a little sidebar, I think it was District Attorney Amy Klobuchar who gave him a pass.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the old story.
Yeah.
But you're right about that. Now, this woman, supposedly a 26-year veteran, with this cock and bull story about she mistook a gun for a taser, which is ludicrous if you look at the video. If she did do that, she was severely mentally impaired or something. And the subject that's never going to be raised, by the way, although she resigned, I think was probably asked to, is that was an affirmative action hire from the jump. I mean, I'm sorry. If anybody
because they wanted a woman, is that it?
Yeah, and she's very senior with 26 years of experience. Yeah. I've known a lot of cops, and they bemoan and they're older, obviously, or they're retired, and they bemoan what's happened to these departments. That there's a lack of quality, and if you bring in crummier personnel, you're going to get crummier results, and that's the fact.
No, I think that's interesting. Yeah,
I mean, nobody talks about affirmative action for airline pilots yet.
Oh no, actually, you're wrong. They are talking about.
Well, right. It just came up, but somehow I don't think that's going to do. I mean, there have been, because if you study, unfortunately, aviation accidents, it turns out that there is a disturbing number that are caused by generally second officers, as it happens, that just weren't any good and happen to take over flying when the captain uses the head or whatever it is.
Oh my God.
And yeah, I mean, people don't want to face stuff like this because we're all supposed to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But in some instances, you want a meritocracy.
Of course. We always want a meritocracy if it's a real one, not one filled with hacks. Yeah. Now, especially in an area with skill. Now, there's also a story coming out of Boston, and I want to be very careful here. Very careful.
Yeah.
We're not going to mention the name of the institution that I'm talking about. Let's just say that it is a significant medical institution. It is one of the biggest, one of the most famous in the country, actually.
Right.
And let me just for the record say it is not Mass General Hospital. Okay.
Okay. Because that's frankly what I thought.
No, it's not. That's my hospital, and they're great. So,
yeah. Right.
it is a significant place. According to the Washington Examiner and according to Jeff Kuhner, who was talking about this, and Jeff is the morning afternoon host at WRKO, which is a significant radio station in Boston, 50,000 watt station. This is not some rinky-dink outfit. I mean,
no, it's always been a big station.
Oh yeah, and he's huge. He's got an enormous following, and he's very good. He's very careful. He has a good team of researchers. This particular institution has decided to take the advice of two Harvard professors who shall remain nameless.
Oh, I know that story.
Yeah, and who are one of the significant contributors to this really, really racist and cockamamie, race theory stuff.
Yeah, critical race theory.
Critical race theory, what Governor DeSantis has banned in the Florida school system, but it's worming its way everywhere right now. Yeah. And this particular institution has embraced this agenda as a pilot program by which they are going to give preferential medical treatment to people based upon their biological orientation.
Yeah, I do remember reading that, and I know the name of the hospital.
We know what I'm talking about, and in other words, it's
which, by the way, its reputation used to be stellar, but it has done a few things in the past few years that have really shattered that. But that's another story.
Yeah, it is another story, and I could give a personal anecdote about something they did, but we're not going to talk about that.
Okay, but here I have to mention one thing.
Yeah.
I had seen this on a couple of forums, which I am on, so you don't have to be, where this was raised. And I said, well, I'm not really surprised, okay, because there's nothing more useless than an academic MD. Nothing.
Now look at Anthony Fauci.
Well,
speaking of Fauci, there's Steve Deace's book is ripping up the charts right now, The Faucian Bargain.
Yeah.
It's a great expose of Fauci. Everyone in Washington's reading it. And it's number one on the, it went number one on the Amazon list until Amazon decided to shadow ban it. It's still there though. It's great. Good. I mean, I'm trying to get him on the show. I don't think he's going to come on with me. He doesn't need to. I mean, he's doing gangbusters.
Well, there's a very important concept in most fields of endeavor, which is called actually practicing the trade, whatever it is. I mean, would you call in a plumber who's only been an academic plumber? In other words, he's never actually
been out the field,
installed anything. All right. And to use Fauci as a prime example,
sure,
he never saw a patient after residency, which ended in 1968. All right. And the trouble with these people is that they don't recognize their limitations at all. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's almost because they have no practical experience that makes them better than you. And I can tell you that my son, who's involved in various aspects of medicine, including addiction medicine, and he's also the medical director of Arizona Public Service, will encounter people who have all kinds of brilliant ideas of what to do, who've never spent a moment in the field. And my wife, who's a teacher, sees this all the time with administrators and people that think they know better. So this is not a new phenomenon. But in the case of these two Harvard guys, it was an opportunity for them to bloviate based on some irrelevant theory about how this affects how to treat patients, which is nonsense. And in fact, they were condemned.
Well, it's worse than nonsense. I mean, this is, if they're going to put people on the front of the line who are of a certain biological birth, as opposed to someone else who may not be. What happens if you've had a heart attack? What happens if you need to, urgent care?
Well, here's what
are you going to be put in the back of the line because somebody else, you're not the right, background, and somebody else will be put first?
Well, I mean, the answer to that, of course, is Sieg Heil.
Thank you, because that's exactly what this is. This is crackpot race theory. I'm going to be blunt. Look, I don't care. Maybe I'm going to be pulled from YouTube for this. This reminds me of the kind of racial, stuff that was going on in National Socialist Europe. Let's be euphemistic here.
Yeah.
During the 1930s, we may recall that our country went to war to stop this in the 1940s. This is where you have the state or significant institutions in a particular society decide that people who have one particular biological orientation are preferred over another. And, do I think that, there's been racism? First of all, I don't think there really has been with hospitals. I think hospitals admit everybody if they need urgent care. Maybe even if there has, the answer is not to prioritize certain races over the other. The answer is to get rid of the problem.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, if there were a case where some poor black guy was denied treatment back in 1954, I'm not really sure how it helps him that you're going to deny some white guy treatment.
Right. You take away the race. We're supposed. Whatever happened to Martin Luther King's vision of not being judged by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character?
Well, it's not operative anymore.
I mean, and this particular institution is known to be very, very liberal. I mean, are they saying that for the past, 20, 30, 40 years, they've been racist in their medical treatment? I didn't know that.
Well, it's popular for them to say that. In other words, if you may have seen in the Simpsons, Hank Azaria for many years voiced this character of East Indian background who ran a store. And of course, that's a cliche, even though it is true that many people from India do own 7-Eleven franchises. Well, now he's apologizing. Wasn't it terrible that he did this? Well, first of all, you're an actor. That was the part that you were playing. If it's terrible at all,
well, he wants to get another job is the problem, and he's going to be blackballed unless he does. And it's easy for me because they can't do much to me. To say I'll stand up to that crap. I'm going to say no. I'm going to reject that. I'm not apologizing for anything. But he's in Hollywood. He he has an agent who might drop him. He wants to get parts, in television.
But I mean, consider how stupid this is.
Of course,
he didn't write the part.
Oh, it's complete tyranny.
Okay, so in other words, if you're an actor that back in 1961 played a racist Southern sheriff in a movie, you have to apologize for that if you want to get future work.
Well, you can't see reruns to what was that sitcom? The
Amos and Andy?
No. The one with they had the Confederate flag on the roof of the car.
Oh, the Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. They can't play that now.
Yeah, because nobody in the South had Confederate flags on their car.
Right. I mean, just the fact that image exists, that you can't have that now. That's banned.
Well, because
and by the way, they're trying to bring back slavery. I mean, it's ridiculous. But whatever. I mean, it's we're talking about stuff that is part of this really this informal tyranny, the cultural tyranny, the Kulturkampf, if you will.
Well, Goebbels would be proud. I mean, it's
sure, and the idea that this kind of race theory would be implemented in a major institution.
Well, here's the thing, Charles. If you're a useless academic MD, and they are useless, you have plenty of time to bloviate about stuff like this. God forbid you deal with chronic disease or something actually practical.
Actually help somebody.
They're not in that business. They
I mean, Harvard has a whole school of medical public service, which is just devoted to this. People get degrees in it. They're not even doctors. They don't even claim to be doctors. They're just administrators of healthcare. I mean, this is what Obamacare is all about. These people who know nothing about actual healthcare. I mean, it's, maybe this is in a way a trend. Like I recall that during the mortgage meltdown in 2009, 2008, I remember someone saying that a lot of this was because you had all of these new, young finance graduates, had degrees in finance, had degrees, in economics, but really had never worked for anybody, newly graduated from college. And they all were given these high-paid jobs on Wall Street where they would sit around looking at a computer screen all day, and they'd be blipping numbers here, and they'd be doing stats there, and they'd be putting people's pension funds here and people's retirement there.
Right.
And they really didn't understand in the real world what these things were. They had never actually gone out to a company and kicked the tires and taken a look at what was going on. What are they producing? Who's running the show there? Meeting the owners, meeting the managers, taking a look at the culture of the place, taking a look at the future of the place. They knew nothing about that. All they knew was a bunch of numbers on their computer screen. And it was because of them that there was a collapse, because they didn't know what they were doing.
Well, that's even Karl Marx, of course, never set foot in a factory.
Oh, yeah. He hated it. He refused.
And he couldn't balance his own checkbook.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that Engels not just Engels, but others invited him. And he just absolutely refused.
No.
Well, I mean, I suppose you could, not to use a really hyperbolic example, but I don't think that Adolf Hitler or Joseph Stalin ever stepped foot in a concentration camp or in a gulag.
No.
They shielded themselves from that. I mean, that was for other people to worry about. They didn't want to know. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, it's like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I mean, I know maybe I'm using an extreme example in that case, but.
Well, the other thing was that famous King Leopold's War story that we can talk about next time.
You mean with the way he treated the Congo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I think he was responsible for like 1 million deaths.
Oh, yeah. There were 1 million deaths. And of course, the punchline of the story is that he never actually set foot in the Congo, didn't know anything about it at all. And I think this is a source of pride for most of these people. That apparently, if you have a completely academic mindset, the less practical experience you have, the better, because now it's pure.
Well, doesn't that kind of explain much of our academic elite today in colleges?
Of course.
Isn't this the people that are running our, social sciences, anthropology, sociology?
Yeah, well, I mean, the joke used to be in the 60s that was about the time, and I was an undergrad, where the sociology professors, the anthropology professors started changing from wearing suits to wearing work shirts. And I actually noted to a classmate, much to his horror, that I said, isn't it funny that the farther these guys get from physical labor, the more they dress like these people?
What an observation. That's so
yeah, it was just a total affectation. And that's always what it was. And
reminds me of when Al Gore was running for president, his advisor said, you need to wear more earth tones so you could look like everyone else. You could look like a real person,
Yes. Yeah, Naomi Wolf was giving him advice.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, she's pretty good now.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, I guess she had an epiphany.
Yeah. Should try to get her on. I don't think she'll come on with me, but you never know.
Yeah, well, she really came out hard against vaccine passports.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I look, it's easy for me to sit here and say that I don't think that's going to happen. But given everything that's happened in this past year, between the response to the pandemic and between the improprieties around the election, I wouldn't put anything past anyone.
Well, may you live in interesting times.
Yeah, basically. So.
And by the way, to the gods of YouTube, I hope we didn't offend anybody.
We certainly do. We tried our best to not, even though we don't know the exact words that go into the algorithm, we generally have a sense through the purging of other people and me what are the subjects that are now forbidden in this free
I
society.
feel like I'm on the Groucho Marx show in reverse. But if I say the secret word, I don't win any money. I get removed from the show. So
Yeah, well, we're all like in the Groucho Marx show right now.
yeah.
So anyway, Mike, what do you have coming up in terms of your column?
What coming up? I still have a few ideas I'm throwing around. I mean, we've talked about various issues with vaccines and how the so-called efficacy rate
Be
is
careful.
calculated, which we won't
Discuss. Right.
Other than to say that it's not what you think.
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Where can people read it?
Healthnewsdigest.com.
All right.
And what about your website? Anything new on there?
Well, I mean, charlesmoscowitz.com. I have, every time I do a YouTube, it shows up there automatically. I've got my books linked there. I've got my archives there. If you click on About Charles Moscowitz, you get links to 30, actually it's over 30 now, different venues that carry this program, either as a video or as an audio or both. And, I have a bunch of other things up there that are fun to look at. So what the heck? I mean, thank you for asking. CharlesMoscowitz.com.
Yeah, people should check it out.
It's
I
going
know
well.
you're adding content all the time.
I mean, it's picking up steam. I'm getting a lot of visitors, and I'm thinking about trying to do more interesting things with it to make it more interactive and to people can, I want people to have an experience there. So there it is. Anyway, Mike, listen, I want to thank you as always for joining me.
Well, it's always great to be part of this. And
We'll do it again.
We will leave you with this famous Henry Ford quote. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
And another great Ford quote, I think this is from Ford Jr., was, don't complain and don't explain.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right, take care.
All right, we will see you next time.
All right, bye-bye.